Check for J. Check 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2 1 2.
10.
Good afternoon. This will begin our public briefing here in Calcasieu Parish for Hurricane Delta. My name is Brian Beam. I'm Calcasieu Parish Administrator, and today is Wednesday, October 7th at 5 p.m. This one's strange because it was scheduled as a Hurricane Laura briefing, which we can cover at the end, but as strange fate would have it, we've got another threat of a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico that could impact Calcasieu Parish, so we've got to be ready for that, even though the timing is very unfortunate for all of us. We will cover a lot of important information today, but it's always helpful, and we're very fortunate to have with us to start off the National Weather Service. We have a great National Weather Service branch here in Lake Charles, and Andy Patrick will give us an update on Hurricane Delta. Andy?
Thank you, Brian. Well, Delta's emerged off the Yucatan Peninsula this afternoon as a Category 1 hurricane with maximum sustained winds at 85 miles per hour. That was a little lower than what was anticipated in earlier forecasts. Delta is supposed to continue moving northwest into the west central Gulf of Mexico and continue to strengthen. And right now we're expecting it to reach a Category 3 or winds in excess of 115 miles per hour. This will be sometime during the day tomorrow. One thing to note is the fact that it's eventually going to be turning north and then eventually north-northeast, and that's going to be the key as far as where precisely Delta is going to be hitting. Right now, it looks like the track is going to take it into western Vermilion Parish or maybe eastern Cameron Parish. Obviously, there's still a little bit of air. It can go either way to the west or east. So right now, we're expecting, at least in Calcasieu Parish, tropical storm force winds. That's winds in excess of 39 miles per hour to begin probably sometime late Thursday night, early Friday morning time frame, with the potential for 60 to 80 mile per hour winds with gusts to 100 miles per hour. This will be sometime, we think, during Friday afternoon. Winds will likely then diminish probably sometime during the evening, maybe later in the evening, Friday night, as Delta is going to rapidly move northeast. It's going to get embedded into some very strong upper flow, and it will likely accelerate into the Mississippi Valley very quickly. Besides the potential for 60 to 80 mile per hour winds with gusts to 100, we're expecting the potential for some storm surge, 2 to 4 feet. We're going to have to wait and see. A lot of times the storm surge, especially once the system goes east of us, is probably not going to be a factor. Tides will generally be lower than normal, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. It's probably more a factor down towards, say, Cameron Parish and so forth. Rainfall-wise, we're expecting 2 to 4 inches, possibly up to 8 inches. Again, this is going to be a fairly rapid moving system, so we're not really expecting, we don't think at this time, double-digit rainfall that could really seriously impact transportation or anything due to flash flooding. So one other thing to note here before I turn it back to Brian is the fact that right now mostly we're under a hurricane watch currently, and normally those are issued 48 hours, I should say, prior to hurricane conditions reaching. Right now, the 36-hour time frame will hit into this evening. So if you have a weather radio or something that will trigger a hurricane warning, it could be on your mobile phone as well, you'll likely get an alert sometime later tonight. We think there's going to be a hurricane warning, and right now, even though we could see a few, I would say, tweaks in the track, we are expecting hurricane conditions to be likely, especially across, eastern Calcasieu, probably all of Calcasieu Parish as well. So any questions? If not, I'll hand it over to Brian.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Next, we have Dick Grimion, Calcasieu Parish Emergency Preparedness Director, and he's got an important announcement and some other things that relate to it.
Thank you, Brian. Just prior to this meeting today, Calcasieu Parish President Tony Guillory, in consultation with the Executive Policy Group, which is the mayors, the sheriff, a couple other people, issued a mandatory evacuation order for Calcasieu Parish. The reason this is being issued, and I'll just read the language, a mandatory evacuation order may be issued when danger is imminent and conditions exist that seriously imperil or endanger lives of those in a defined area. You just heard the weather report from Andy. This is a very potentially serious situation. We can't keep our eye off it until the thing comes ashore somewhere. When you're looking at this, just remember what Andy said. Look at the whole track area, not just the line in the middle, because that may be misleading as to where the hurricane ends up. Now, since we're issuing a mandatory evacuation order, we have expanded our bus transportation plan that we've had in effect for the last couple of weeks. What this is going to consist of is if you need a ride to a shelter in the city of Lake Charles, you'll go to your normal bus route that you use and wait. The city buses will be running their routes and coming by those to pick you up. Outside of the city limits of Lake Charles, we're going to have several locations. You can call 211 and get one of those locations. If you can't get to that location, you will call 911 and tell them that you need an evacuation ride. This is starting immediately, and it'll run through sometime tomorrow. So if you need a ride, just remember 211 for information, 911 if you cannot get a ride to the bus evacuation point. Someone will pick you up. I think
You need to mention that evacuation is effective 5 p.m.
Yeah, the evacuation is, I'm sorry, the mandatory evacuation is effective as of 5 p.m. today. So with that, if anyone has any questions? Teresa?
When you say it's effective at 5 p.m. today, are you saying you want people to start leaving? I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, we have a mic.
I know, I'm sorry. My fault. Well, if you're saying it's effective at 5 p.m. tonight, what exactly do you want people to do?
Well, we'd like people to at least prepare. We don't expect that you leave immediately, but certainly by tomorrow, if you're going to evacuate the area, you need to be well on your way to wherever you're going. We've got a guest here today. Casey Tingle is the Deputy Director of GOSEP. And Casey could give us a little bit of perspective on the state and federal process that we go through when we declare an emergency. So Casey, come on up.
Thank you, Dick, and thank you to all the elected officials and other leaders here today on behalf of Calcasieu Parish. I did want to just provide a brief update on some of the actions that the state is taking in support of all of the parishes potentially impacted by this, and a couple of things specific to Calcasieu. So it was announced earlier this afternoon that there would be state office closures both tomorrow and Friday. Friday, the office closures will be statewide. For tomorrow, it's a select group of parishes along the coast to include Calcasieu Parish. So those are state offices. On yesterday, Governor Edwards issued a state declaration of emergency to allow the state to position resources and begin responding to requests from parishes. And that work started immediately as we started to assist coastal Louisiana with things like sandbags, pumps, generators, and other emergency efforts. This morning, Governor Edwards submitted to the President a request for a federal pre-landfall emergency declaration. That request is under process, and Governor Edwards followed up with a phone call with the President later today to walk through the specifics of that, and we believe that that's going to be granted in short order. What that will do is allow the federal government to begin to increase their support to the state. They had already pre-positioned a number of assets, but that allows us to work directly with our federal partners to position resources to assist with both pre-landfall but particularly post-landfall effects. Search and rescue assets, all of the agencies that have search and rescue responsibilities for the state of Louisiana are activated and prepared and ready to go. And in addition to that, we've made a number of requests from other states for their USAR teams to be positioned in the state as well. And those resources are being positioned to be able to respond to the needs of Louisiana. Over 1,300 National Guardsmen, men and women, are activated in support for Hurricane Delta and available to support missions as we would assign them. And then I did want to speak specifically to, since the evacuation order was mentioned and evacuation transportation was mentioned, that the state is supporting that effort. We've been supporting the parish since Hurricane Laura with coach buses that would be allowing people to come back or be transported out of the parish as their needs would arise. And those efforts are continuing, so we'll be supporting the parish's efforts for those that need transportation with coach buses to state shelter facilities. And so I did want to mention that from the state's perspective. So there's a lot of moving parts here. Almost the entire coast of Louisiana is in the cone, and so we've got a lot of efforts ongoing, but I did want to mention some of those and highlight them for you, and would be happy to take any questions that you might have.
If they get on a bus to go to a shelter, how do they know whether they're going to go to some type of congregate shelter with other people or whether they'll be taken to a hotel? And to what extent do they have any choice?
So as it stands right now, because there's still some uncertainty with the track of the storm, we are not going to be sheltering anyone in South Louisiana. So everyone that gets on a bus will be transported to our big shelter in Alexandria and would be sheltered there congregate through the storm. If we need additional shelter space to support that because of the numbers, Calcasieu is not the only parish that's considering these actions. Those additional shelters would be opened, but the plan right now is that it would be congregate through the storm. Post landfall, we would then come back into available hotels for those that can't return home.
What, if any, advice would you have for people who might stay in their home, but their house is damaged due to Hurricane Laura?
I would advise them not to stay in their home. We basically are less than 24 hours with a window of time to take protective actions. As the parish has notified the public of the mandatory evacuation, we at the state would encourage the public to heed that advice. Thank you. So I'm gonna defer to the parishes on that. There are a number of other parishes that have issued recommendations on evacuations, and I don't have that list in front of me, but as they take those actions, they are coordinating with us, and if they need additional resources from the state to support that, we stand ready to do that.
Do you know at this point how many parishes have declared mandatory evacuations? I was only aware of Calcasieu and Cameron.
I'm sorry, I don't know, but I know that a number of parishes are considering it, and some of them have already issued voluntary evacuations as a recommendation to their public. We would just say to the public in general, outside of what Calcasieu has declared, you basically have less than 24 hours to be where you need to be, and we would encourage you to do that.
we know that in the past, some people have been reluctant to leave and stay in their homes. What's the advice to them in terms of it being too late if they do choose to stay, the hurricane comes ashore, and at that point, you're potentially putting first responders in danger?
So the question is, for those that choose to stay, not only at that point are you putting your life and family at risk, you're putting the others at potential risk too, should you have a need. And I'm not a first responder, but I think the expectation is that if you stay, you're making a choice to take the consequences that come with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. We appreciate Casey Tingle being here from the state's GOSEP office. There's so many things that go on behind the scenes. So you have local agencies, parish, cities, law enforcement, hospitals, but you also have a whole set of agencies, not just GOSEP at the state level, who are coordinating with us in other parishes. So you heard some good reasons. Again, I want to emphasize this, and we said it in Laura. We're very proud here in Calcasieu of having this executive policy group, which we say a lot. The reason it's so important is because you have all the local leaders in one room talking about an issue that's rarely cut and dry. So things like a mandatory evacuation, they talk about all sides of it. We get good information directly from the Weather Service, recommendations from OEP and others, and they make these decisions with a lot of thought. And the mandatory evacuation, we'll hear from these officials shortly, but it's very important to keep Hurricane Laura in context with this. Lots of debris still on the roadsides. As you know, winds, even tropical storm force winds, blow hard enough to move that debris into roads again, or even worse, and it may hit buildings and so forth. In addition, the question, Teresa, you asked for Casey about homes. So many homes may be livable, but it's very unclear whether they're safe to be in. And so with that was heavy in the decision-making of your elected leaders. So let's hear from some of them now, and we'll start with Tony Gilry, Calcasieu Parish Police Jury President.
Thank you, Brian. I must say I don't like standing up here again asking everyone to do this again, but we must be safe. There's a lot of debris, as everyone has said, there's out there that could be flying around and could hurt. Somebody could get hurt. We will be using parish transit buses to move people to Burton Coliseum as of today. This storm should be taken seriously. We were hit very hard with Laura, and although we did not expect this storm to be as bad, we are still recovering, and this storm will not make it easier. I want you all to know that all public officials, first responders, staff, and other organizations that have been working on recovery will continue to do so. We will do our best to provide the needs of the people of our community. Please take care of yourselves, your family, your neighbors, by being safe the next upcoming days. Again, thank you to everyone, and may God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And while we're on the police jury for just a second, we do want to announce police jury offices will be closed tomorrow and Friday. I think a public news briefing or news release is going out on that. I would ask any of the mayors who talk, and the sheriff's going to be next, just to announce whatever plans you each have in terms of any closures. We'll next hear from Sheriff Tony Mancuso.
Well, like I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of, I think all of us are not looking forward to this, but we're going to make the best of it, and we're going to do the best we can with the situation that we have. I think mandatory evacuation, I want people to understand that we did this based on a lot. The storm track, where it's going, the debris, I think we've mentioned some of those things, and it's a tough decision to make, being we just went through it, 6 weeks ago. But we don't know yet where exactly this storm's going to go, and we're less than 48 hours from it making landfall. So we have to make a decision based on the information that we have, and we feel like this is in the best interest of the public. What does that mean? We're not going to come physically take you out of your house. That's not going to happen. It's a choice that you're going to make. We feel as public officials that it's in your best interest that you should leave the parish. So you have to make a decision. And to answer your question a while ago, I think one of you from the media asked about what's going to happen. There is going to be a point when your public services will stop. And we will have to wait because of our safety. And we had that. And let me tell you something. It's heartbreaking to hear those 911 calls and we cannot get out to help you. So that's a choice you're going to make. We're giving you the information that we know it's not going to be safe and you should evacuate. And we're giving you every means possible to do that. If you don't have the transportation, we've provided that for you. And that starts right now. So that's a choice that you have to make. I know that I got a couple calls today from people that stayed that I tried to convince to leave that said, hey, we're leaving. Don't worry about us. We're gone. So that's what I encourage you to do. If you choose not to, then we'll deal with that when the time comes. But it may not be as fast as you would like us to be there. Because I can tell you, it took us a long time to get back out into the parish after this storm passed earlier, 6 weeks ago. It just takes time. We have to clear the roads. It's not safe. So we still have all this debris laying around that we're going to have to contend with, even if we just get sideswiped. At this point, we're still going to possibly have tropical storm winds that are going to blow this debris around and make conditions unsafe for us. So you have to take all that into consideration. There will be a curfew. Unfortunately, as Brian said, we were planning on lifting the curfew that we had in place today, but now instead of doing that, we're going to go back to the curfew from 7. This will start tomorrow evening, Thursday evening, from 7 p.m. till 6 a.m. again until further notice, till we feel like we're in the clear. And you will be allowed back in the parish as soon as the storm passes. I know that this is a big concern of people. From Rita days, we did not do this in Laura. We let people come back immediately. Although it clogs our roads, but it worked out fairly well. We felt like people were willing to leave if they knew they could come back. So we're going to do that again. We're going to follow that protocol and allow people in just as soon as it's safe for you to come in. In other words, we have to migrate our way back through debris. So again, if you have a chainsaw and you choose to come back and you can path your own way, so be it. But just keep in mind, medical services and ambulances, fire and rescue may not be there for you right away. So keep all those things in mind when you decide to come back. But when this storm passes, you will be allowed to come back into the parish. And I think that's it. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything. Brian, I think we covered that.
I just wanted to clarify
Sure.
one thing, because there was so much controversy about it before. The fact that people are allowed back in does not mean that the mandatory evacuation is lifted. Is
Absolutely
that
not.
true? Okay.
That's correct. We will lift the mandatory evacuation when we feel like it's safe for people to come back in. We will lift the curfew when we feel like power is restored and we feel like people's alarm systems are working, and we take a hard stance on that whenever we've already put in a request for National Guard. I mean, we've done this so many times that we've put in the steps to keep our public safe, whether through security or whatever. That's what we focus on, is keeping the community safe. But there is a time when that window of opportunity is gone. And we do not venture out for our safety. We gotta have people here to take care of us when we get back. And there is a point where we stop those services, and they don't continue again till it's safe to go back out. So that's what's so heart-wrenching and hurts us, because that's our job. Our job is to protect people and to save lives and do whatever it takes to protect life and property. But there is a point where that has to stop because they're in so much danger. So. Mandatory evacuation doesn't mean we're going to physically take you from your home, and it doesn't mean you can't come back. It just means we think it's in your best interest as public officials that you should stay away. So, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. We'll now hear from some of the mayors, and we'll start with Mayor Nick Hunter of Lake Charles.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, everyone. Well, I don't know if we've run out of words or adjectives to describe this year, this hurricane season, but unbelievable, unprecedented, unimaginable come to mind, and it really is the case. I want us to also keep in perspective and just keep our eyes on the big picture and realize the advances that we have made in science, technology, communications, meteorological sciences, and it doesn't take away any of the emotions or any of the disappointment or any of the pain or the struggle of what people are going through right now. But I want us to think about Hurricane Audrey for a moment, a storm that was actually less intense than Hurricane Laura and caused over 400 deaths in southwest Louisiana because we didn't have the advances that we have today. And so while no one likes doing this, while this is not a comfortable spot for anybody, it is a good thing that we are able to give people advance notice about these things. And so in issuing this mandatory evacuation today, we are giving people the notice that they need and the heads up that they need. Every hurricane is different. Please do not think that just because your house or your structure survived Laura, that is a guarantee that it would do well or fare well with Hurricane Delta. Hurricane Rita, Ike, Gustav, Laura, Delta, all different storms, all with their own DNA. So we should not get caught in a situation where we are saying, well, 6 weeks ago I was fine, or 15 years ago I was fine, I'll be fine today. You never know. You never know. The DNA of every storm is different. I want to reiterate that we are giving people options to get out of town. With everything going on in the world right now, even if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic and even if we had the best economy in the world right now, there are always going to be individuals that probably don't have the financial wherewithal to just simply pick themselves up, put gas money into their vehicles, go rent a hotel. We understand that. We hear that. It doesn't mean that we are not thinking about those individuals every second of this event. And so certainly before we discussed an evacuation, we discussed how do we get people out of Lake Charles that don't have the means to do that. And I want to thank local and state agencies for working together to provide those options. So as I speak here right now, if you show up to a city bus stop here in Lake Charles, a city bus will bring you to Burton Coliseum, and then, as Casey said a moment ago, you'll be brought to a shelter. And I get it. The idea of congregate shelters right now is probably not at the top of everyone's list of things they want to do. I get it. But one thing I can guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you where you'll be going exactly. I can guarantee you that it would be a safe location. I cannot guarantee you that Calcasieu Parish this weekend would be a safe location. And so that's why we're asking people to please heed that advice. Please wear masks if you do use the transportation plan. City offices will be closed tomorrow and Friday. Hurricane season 2020 will end. The year 2020, I think, will end. I had someone text me this morning, and they didn't even say, how you doing? They didn't say anything other than, remember the sun will come out again. And I want everyone listening to remember that. The sun will come out again. We're going to get through this. We have a job to do right now. Government has a job to do, and really every citizen in this parish has a job to do. Your job is to keep yourself safe, to keep you and your family safe. And so it's okay to take a moment to kind of have some deep breaths and take all this in. It's okay to maybe throw a few expletives out there at the mirror or yell into the pillow if you need to. But after you do that, let's all do our job. And our job right now, at this moment in time, is keeping people safe. and that's what we're trying to do as we approach Hurricane Delta. That's the end of my report, and if there are any questions, I'll take them at this moment.
Well, obviously, you just offered one alternative as far as getting out of town. A viewer wants to know whether any lodging assistance will be available for those having to evacuate, again, with little funds, saying that they haven't been paid from their homeowner's insurance and they have received nothing from FEMA.
Well, I think Casey commented on that a moment ago. What I would tell people is dial 211. Certainly that is a number that can connect you to resources. Some of those questions are a little bit outside the realm of local city government, and I don't know the answer to whether vouchers will be provided immediately, but Casey did say that if you're using the transportation route that we're offering, you are going to go to a congregate shelter, and that's something that we're going to be very honest and open about right now. And it's possible that hotels could come after that depending on what the state does, what FEMA does. But one thing I want to reiterate is I can't guarantee you that Calcasieu Parish is going to be a safe location this weekend with Hurricane Delta. I can assure you that a state congregate shelter would certainly be a safer location, and I would have more faith and more confidence in the safety of that location than I would staying home in Calcasieu Parish for Hurricane Delta. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick. Next, we'll hear from Town of Iowa Mayor Paul Hess. Paul Hess.
I guess I want to start with Iowa being on the eastern side of the parish. We probably have a higher risk of being hit with some of the storm effects. And so I want to bring this out that our citizens need to take seriously this evacuation, just like they did with Hurricane Laura. You know, we had a tremendous amount of people left, and left the town, and we made sure we looked after it while they left. And I want to stress that you need to take this just as seriously. We did not lose any lives directly to the Hurricane Laura itself, and I want to keep up that goal for this hurricane also. And, you know, by doing that, that means you need to think about yourself and say, let me take my family out. I will tell you right now, the police department, the fire department, essential utility workers, and myself are staying in the town, and we're going to hunker down so that we're going to look out after your stuff to make sure nothing occurs nefariously. You know, you can have some assurance that we will be looking out for your best interest during this time, but we think that you should look out for yourself and your family and leave town. As the sheriff said, as soon as the hurricane passes, which I understand it's a fast-moving hurricane, our workers are going to be out trying to clear the roads so that you can come back and check on your house and your belongings to make sure and see what happened. So, I just want to give you assurances. You can feel comfortable that we're going to be there looking out after your stuff while you leave so that you can leave and take care of your family. Now, I understand that there may be a good chance that electricity will be lost again. We kind of went through that, so that's another reason for you not to be there for at least the short period of time that it takes to get back. And as you can tell, our town, we've done quite a bit since Hurricane Laura to move debris and stuff, but your structures are already damaged. So it's not going to take a strong wind or a strong storm to damage your house even further. And that's another reason why you should take the best opportunity to leave now. I can't stress enough that I've had my family leave. If I wasn't the mayor, I would leave. I tell you right now, it's not worth staying around and suffering, without electricity, without utilities. And you can feel very confident in the personnel that are working for the town. I think we've shown that through this last hurricane. And that's about all I have to say on that. So.
We have questions from your area about Century Telephone. I mean, it may be sort of a moot point at this point, but that their service has not been restored or their internet?
Not completely. A lot of the telephone services are still down. We went down after the hurricane, and they have not been completely restored. I know that they're working on the lines, but the telephone, the landlines are out. I think we're using basically cell phones and internet access. We just gotten back some internet access, so the town was hit pretty hard.
I'm sorry, what I meant was people are complaining that their Century Telephone service and internet service has not been restored. Do you have any update on when it will be?
I just know right now they're working on it. I've seen the trucks have been going through, and I know the last week or so they just started getting internet on certain parts of the town, but there's a lot of parts of the town that have not received internet service, and I suspect when this goes through, it's going to probably put us back on that also. You know, we are not happy with it. I'm telling you, as a town officials, we are looking at other options, trying to look and see if there are wireless options, other options to happen, because this does affect the communications, not of just only our citizens, but also our emergency response apparatus, you know, so. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate you being here. Several of the mayors have had to go back in their own preparations, but are there any other mayors that wish to speak that may still be here? Okay. We have one more speaker today, one you're familiar with, Margaret Harris with Entergy. But she's here today not to talk about Laura restoration, but more on the side of the preparations that Entergy makes looking ahead. So we appreciate Margaret Harris from Entergy being here.
I do indeed wish I were here to strictly talk about recovery and rebuilding from Hurricane Laura. I want to assure you today that we have at Entergy dealt with large back-to-back storms, and we are prepared to do so again today. And we, like every other official who has spoken to you today, want to encourage you to make the necessary plans for you and your family to remain safe. We are doing messaging to our customers. So if you have not signed up, you're an Entergy customer and have not signed up to receive messages from us, we try to send some proactive messages out to you about our business. And you can do so if you want to receive them by text by sending text to REG to 36778, or you can go to our website or to our app and look for methods of communication with us. So as we've mentioned before in the past, in recovery from storms, we go through the assessment phase first, which is a phase where it's not quite as visible because it's very important for us to assess damages so that we have the right materials coming in to do the work. We are calling for resources as we always do, and we are executing our storm plan. Critical services, again, will be very important to try to restore those as quickly as possible. Depending on where their damage is, determines whether or not it's feasible to get those services up first, but that will be very important to us. Hospitals, fire and police, water systems, major wastewater. So number one for all of us in this room is your safety and our safety. So on behalf of everyone here today and on behalf of Entergy, we want to remind you to be safe, take the necessary precautions to be safe, to protect your family. And also, the safety of our restoration workers is critical for the recovery as well. There's one other thing I'd like to add that's sometimes hard for people to understand. We could be on the west side of this storm and still experience squalls and various impacts. We do not put buckets up in the air for our bucket trucks at 30 miles per hour or greater, so that will slow things down depending on gusting winds and so forth. Are there any questions?
The emergency services that you described, like the hospitals, excuse me, are they up to speed now since Laura?
We currently have service to all the hospitals, yes.
Okay, and would you want to give any advice for people as far as if they are leaving, should they, flip the breaker, or what should they do to prevent electrical damage to their homes while they're gone?
We do suggest that you turn off your main breaker at your home, just to protect from, for example, single phasing or that type of thing. It's highly recommended. Thank you so much today, and we will certainly be in this for the long haul with our whole community.
We appreciate you being here, Margaret. And that will actually be our last speaker for today. Are there any other general questions?
Well, first of all, someone is asking if we're going to do contraflow. We don't do that anymore, right?
Right, we do not.
Also,
Fair question.
people are wondering about the debris. I assume that the picking up debris has been suspended for now. Is that right?
Correct. Madam, I'm glad you asked that. Pretty much any regular operations, including recovery, that from Laura that requires outside activity will be postponed for the duration, which hopefully isn't long. We stayed in touch with FEMA also. Jerry Stoller is here. He passed on to me that the FEMA Recovery Center, they're having to close down, but it's all because of safety. So yes, it will be postponed until we're safe to come back. But as soon as that happens, we'll be right back on it because there's a lot of work left to do.
It may not be feasible, but is there anything you would like people to try to do in terms of perhaps securing the debris that is close to their house so that it doesn't cause more damage and that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, the standards, I know you're probably referring to debris that came from Laura, but just remember, it's always very important at your homes to bring in any like outside furniture, things like that. As far as the debris that's waiting to be picked up, if it's sort of just not that much, we would ask residents to maybe clear it, but in most cases it's too much and you're just going to have to leave it there. There's just not much to do. This is a very strange situation. I do know that our public works crews, and this is for the unincorporated areas, will be very quickly back on the road to try to push any debris back off the road that may come from this storm, so that if we're lucky and this isn't a long duration, the debris contractor will get back on the job Monday, pick up right where they left off. But there is a break in the recovery activities right now, yes.
Is there a briefing tomorrow?
Yes, that's actually my next and last comment. We will have a briefing tomorrow at 11 a.m., public briefing, here at the Emergency Operations Center, which I'm sure some viewers recognize from previously. We moved back here. This building, just for what it's worth, is still, it sustained damage, but the Emergency Operations Center is workable. And I know Dick Grimion and his staff are glad to be back home, if you will. So 11 o'clock tomorrow, public briefing here at the EOC. We appreciate everybody's participation and attention today.